Welcome to the Denial Machine, Episode 3, The Weight of Truth.
Sarah barely slept. Every hour, she found herself reaching for her phone to check the time, her mind cycling through the corporate security meeting that awaited her in the morning. The priority protocols folder sat locked in her bedroom safe, but the contents were burned into her memory. $2 billion in systematically denied claims. Algorithms designed to target the most vulnerable populations. A corporate strategy that treated human suffering as an acceptable cost of doing business. At 5:30, she gave up on sleep and made coffee. Through her kitchen window, Chicago was still dark, the city's early morning rhythm just beginning to stir. In a few hours, she would walk into MetLife's headquarters knowing that her 12-year career there was likely over. The only question was whether she could gather enough evidence to make that sacrifice meaningful. Jamie emerged from her bedroom at 6:45, already dressed for school, but moving with the sluggish pace of a teenager who hadn't gotten enough sleep either. "Mom, you were up all night. I could hear you moving around." Sarah looked at her daughter, struck by how perceptive she was becoming. At 14, Jamie was developing the kind of awareness that would serve her well in life. But Sarah wished she could protect her from the adult world's complications for just a little longer. "Work stuff, honey. Nothing for you to worry about." "Is it serious work stuff? Because you look like someone who's about to do something scary." Sarah paused with her coffee cup halfway to her lips. "What makes you say that?" "You get this look, like when you were deciding whether to divorce Dad. Like you're about to jump off a cliff, but you're not sure if you'll fly or crash." The observation was so accurate it took Sarah's breath away. "Jamie, if I had to make a choice between doing something safe and doing something right, what would you want me to choose?" Jamie didn't hesitate. "The right thing. Always the right thing." "But Mom, can you do the right thing and still be safe?" "Sometimes. But not this time, I think." Jamie walked over and hugged her mother, something she rarely did anymore in her teenage independence. "Then, I guess you better make sure the right thing is worth it." After dropping Jamie at school, Sarah drove to MetLife with unusual attention to her surroundings. Every car that had been behind her for more than a few blocks made her nervous. Every person walking near her in the parking garage seemed potentially threatening. She was becoming paranoid, but given what she had discovered, paranoia might be a rational response. The corporate security meeting was scheduled for 9 o'clock in Conference Room B on the 32nd floor, 5 floors above the claims department, and a world away from the cubicles where actual work got done. Sarah had never been to the 32nd floor before, but she imagined it was where the serious decisions were made, where people like her were discussed and disposed of. She arrived at her cubicle at 8:15 and immediately began copying files to a secure external drive. If corporate security was going to restrict her access to MetLife's systems, she needed to preserve as much evidence as possible. The priority protocols folder had given her the big picture, but she needed specific case files that would demonstrate how the systematic denials actually worked in practice. Working quickly but carefully, Sarah copied claim files for Dorothy Martinez and 23 other patients whose denials followed the priority protocols pattern. She also downloaded demographic analysis reports, denial rate statistics by zip code, and comparative data, showing how MetLife's denial rates had increased dramatically over the past 2 years. At 8:55, Sarah saved her work, locked her computer, and took the elevator to the 32nd floor. Conference Room B was larger than any meeting space she had ever used at MetLife, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan and furnishings that suggested serious money. 2 people were waiting for her, a woman in her 50s wearing an expensive suit, and a man about Sarah's age who looked like corporate security. "Ms. Chen, please have a seat," the woman said, gesturing to a chair across the table from them. "I'm Patricia Morrison, Deputy General Counsel. This is David Walsh from Corporate Security." Sarah sat down, noting that neither person offered to shake hands or engage in any of the social pleasantries that normally began business meetings. This was an interrogation, not a discussion. Patricia Morrison closed her folder and looked directly at Sarah. "Ms. Chen, effective immediately, your access to MetLife's computer systems is suspended pending a full investigation into your research activities. You are also suspended from work with pay while we review potential violations of company policy and your employment agreement." Sarah felt like she had been punched in the stomach. "You're suspending me for identifying problems with our claim processing? We're suspending you for violating established protocols, exceeding your authorized system access, and potentially breaching confidentiality agreements. The investigation will determine whether these violations warrant termination." David Walsh slid a document across the table. "This is a formal notice of suspension and investigation. You're required to return all company materials, surrender your access badge, and refrain from discussing this matter with current MetLife employees during the investigation period." Sarah drove directly to Northwestern Memorial Hospital, where Dorothy Martinez was supposed to be receiving chemotherapy for her breast cancer. It took 3 phone calls and 40 minutes of navigating hospital bureaucracy, but eventually, a social worker agreed to help her locate Mrs. Martinez. She found the elderly woman in the hospital's financial counseling office, surrounded by paperwork and looking overwhelmed by the complexity of insurance appeals processes. "Mrs. Martinez, I'm Sarah Chen from MetLife. I've been reviewing your case." Dorothy looked up with a mixture of hope and wariness. "Are you here to tell me my treatment has been approved?" Sarah sat down beside her. "I'm here to tell you that your treatment should never have been denied in the first place, and I'm here to help you understand your options." That afternoon, Sarah met Elena Vasquez at a coffee shop in Lincoln Park, far from MetLife's downtown headquarters. Elena was already waiting when Sarah arrived, her notebook open and a recording device on the table between them. "They suspended me," Sarah said without preamble as she sat down. "I figured they might. Corporate security called you in." "How did you know?" "Because that's what they always do when employees start asking uncomfortable questions. The playbook is predictable: suspension pending investigation, allegations of policy violations, character assassination if necessary." Sarah pulled out the external drive containing the files she had copied that morning. "I managed to preserve some evidence before they cut off my access." Elena leaned forward. "Sarah, according to my research, MetLife's denial practices have affected over 10,000 patients in the past 2 years. People have died because they couldn't get timely treatment. Families have gone bankrupt trying to pay for care that should have been covered. At what point does protecting your career become less important than protecting those people?" Sarah thought about Dorothy Martinez, sitting in the hospital financial office with her stack of confusing paperwork. She thought about the other 66 cases she had identified, each representing a real person whose legitimate medical needs had been systematically ignored. "If I give you this information, what happens next?" At 9:30, Sarah encrypted the priority protocols documents and sent them to Elena Vasquez through a secure file transfer service. Then she wrote a detailed memo explaining the context of each document, the systematic nature of the denial scheme, and the estimated scope of harm to patients. As she hit send, Sarah felt the weight of 12 years at MetLife lifting from her shoulders. She was no longer a corporate employee trying to work within a corrupt system. She was someone who had chosen to fight that system, regardless of the personal cost. Her phone buzzed with a text from Elena. "Documents received. This is going to be the most important story of my career. Thank you for trusting me with it." Sarah texted back, "Thank you for giving me a way to fight back. Make sure it counts." Then she locked her laptop and went to bed, sleeping more soundly than she had in weeks. Tomorrow, Elena would begin the process of transforming Sarah's evidence into a story that could expose MetLife's systematic denial scheme to the world. But tonight, for the first time since she had discovered the priority protocols, Sarah felt like she was finally doing her job the way it was supposed to be done, protecting people from a system designed to harm them.
Thank you for listening to Episode 3 of The Denial Machine. Please find Episode 4 in the description below.